People don't like being pushed into something. They don't like feeling like they're being manipulated in some way. And typically, they'll go the other way to your expectations when they feel like you're pushing them down a particular path. When someone is in an agreeable state of mind, they accept ideas. When someone's in a disagreeable state of mind, they tend to reject ideas. Welcome to the Hypnosis Training Academy. My name is Igor Ledochowski, and I'm going to be your guide for this masterclass on how to uplift, inspire, and positively influence anyone with the power of conversational hypnosis, in particular, the Hypnotic Blitz Technique. Okay, so welcome. I hope you're going to have fun with this. Let's look at what the Hypnotic Blitz Technique is designed to resolve and what value it brings to you in your life. In essence, the problem we're trying to solve here is resistance. What do I mean by this? Well, have you ever tried to give someone a piece of advice or maybe motivate them to do something different? Come meet you for dinner, go to a cinema, try something out, or maybe change a habit, only to have it all rejected, shut down in flames, even though you know that you're right. And maybe even years later, the person themselves will admit that you are right. So the first thing we're going to look at is what's going on here? Why do people reject advice and things like this out of hand? And how can we use then the power of the conversational hypnosis and the Hypnotic Blitz Technique to overcome those problems? All right, first things first. What causes people to reject your ideas? Well, there's a whole bunch of things that can happen, but there's about 4 or 5 main reasons why this happens. First is the law of emotion. That basically means when someone is very emotionally attached to something or very emotional about something, any other ideas can be rejected by it. So for example, someone just has a bad day, they feel really bad about themselves, and you try and cheer them up by telling them what a wonderful person they are. They'll reject that idea because they're stuck in bad emotions. The bad emotions won't let a positive idea come in. Next, we have a similar concept called the law of dominant effect. What does this mean? This is actually also known as sometimes as the law of prior effect. So this is if a pre-existing idea, a belief is in the mind that something is this way. When a contrary belief comes along, a contrary idea comes along, it doesn't even get analyzed, it just gets rejected out of hand. It's just impossible. It just doesn't work. And so it gets rejected. Next, we have just a simple lack of motivation. They just don't have any reason to do it. There's no reason why doing it. And finally, in the terms of the big 4, is a poor communication style. And this usually comes up in what's called persuasion reactance. So here's an example of a poor communication style. If you push someone into doing something, go on, do it, come on, do it, right? People don't like being pushed into something. They don't like feeling like they're being manipulated in some way. And typically, they'll go the other way to your expectations when they feel like you're pushing them down a particular path. So with those 4 key ideas, there are others, of course, but these are the big ones. How can we start resolving this? How can we overcome this reluctance to follow good and healthy ideas when one of these 4 killers is present? This, by the way, will work equally well if you're a therapist, hypnotherapist, or just someone who wants to be more influential and charismatic, whether you are in a leadership position, you want to lead more people, or you're in a sales position, when you sell better, or you have a relationship and you want to have a better relationship. It doesn't matter whether you're doing therapy and helping people make personal transformations, overcoming pain and suffering, or whether you're being more influential, shall we say, corporate settings. The same principles apply because the same human beings are present in each scenario. So what we need to do is bypass the mechanisms that protect the emotions, the beliefs, the absence of motivation, and the reactance to a pure communication style by using our language in a particular way that will basically not trigger persuading reactance, bring in positive emotions, and allow pre-existing negative beliefs and ideas to gradually dissolve away until they're no longer able to interfere with what we're doing. So how are we going to do this? The Hypnotic Blitz has 2 key components. One is conjunctions, and the other one is the content, the hypnotic themes that those conjunctions will flow around. Let's have a look at what this means a bit more. A conjunction is any word like and, because, which means, and so on. A conjunction's role is to glue ideas together, bring them together. So here's the first principle when it comes to overcoming any kind of reluctance to be persuaded, right? Your ideas must flow. The more your ideas seem to flow one from the other, and the more they can follow that flow without interruption, the more likely it is that those ideas will have their desired impact. The more interruptions there are, the more obstacles there are, the more difficulties there are to understanding those ideas, the more the likelihood increases they'll just reject the whole thing out of hand, maybe just because it's too much effort. They can't be motivated enough to actually listen to the whole idea and piece it together inside their mind. So the easier you can make the idea to understand, to internalize, the more likely it's going to be to have its desired effect. So let's give you a quick example using two simple words, and but, which in terms of how it affects us have the complete opposite impact, right? And is a conjunction, but is a disjunction. So let's think about it this way. If I talk to you about a beautiful summer's day and we're on a beach and the waters are flowing and the air is nice and the sun is warm and the sand is so soft between my feet, I'm using the word and as a conjunction between these ideas. You can follow the ideas pretty easily. Now let's see if I can get the same scene, but add some interruption in. It's a beautiful day, but the sand is beautiful, but the water is flowing, but the air is nice and warm, but the sun is shining, but the sand is so soft. Now, that's a very simple and very basic example right now. Hadn't even been woven into a full conversation, and it's relatively crude. And even with that, you should have noticed that when I say the word but, it pulls you out of the experience slightly, jars you a little bit before you have to come back for the next part of the conversation. And when I use the word and, it keeps you in the scene. It doesn't remove you from it. It makes it easier for the next idea to come in and do its job. So just between the idea of flow and interruptions, and other conjunctions help you flow, but and other disjunctions will break that flow and therefore increase the likelihood that the ideas will get ultimately rejected. Principle number 2 is agreement versus disagreement. When someone is in an agreeable state of mind, they accept ideas. When someone's in a disagreeable state of mind, they tend to reject ideas. Conjunctions tend to occur when people are in agreement state of mind. Disjunctions tend to occur when people are in a disagreeing state of mind. So the more conjunctions you use, like the word and, the more likely someone's going to be to get into the swing of things and be more agreeable with it. Likewise, the more disjunctions you use, the more likely you're going to stimulate their disagreement part of the brain, and more likely it is that they're going to end up disagreeing with you. Again, that same example with the and versus the but shows you what happens when people are constantly put on notice. There's something to disagree with here. But basically says disagree or reject everything that came before the word but. The other thing that conjunctions do is they help you create rapport, which means you're in sync with the other person. Back to the agreeableness. There's another thing you can do with hypnotic language, in particular with conjunctions, words like and because and so on. They allow you to guide someone's attention. Because their mind is flowing smoothly with this idea, think of it like someone swinging on a swing. There's a certain momentum that gets built up. So even though they can stop if they want to, it takes more energy, takes more effort to stop the swing in the middle of the swing than to just simply sit there and let the energy sort of dry out until the person can get up and so on. And the same is true of a conversation. The more the conversation flows, the harder it is to interrupt it, the harder it is to jump into other ideas. In other words, the attention, because it's flowing smoothly from one idea to the other, is being guided from one idea to the other, and so therefore it's more likely to be locked into those ideas. The next valuable thing that the conjunctions in hypnotic language do for us is they allow us to do a lot of repetition. Now, if you're familiar with some of the old school classical hypnosis, you may be familiar with the old tropes that the same suggestion gets repeated over and over and over and over again with monotony, just until the will is almost drained and the person goes into trance. The classic one is the sleep suggestion, where they go, your eyes are sleepy and tired, soon they'll want to close, sleepy and tired eyes now, right? This is the so-called Liebold induction, very famous from the 19th century and the 20th century. And it's based on the idea of repetition. It's called the law of attention. Where attention goes, energy flows, and that thing grows. Basically, the more our thoughts are locked into the idea of in this case, sleepiness, the more we activate the feeling of sleepiness inside our bodies through our memories and so on, and the more, well, sleepy we start to feel. And that creates a positive reinforcement feedback loop, which is the heart of all hypnosis. And then the person actually starts feeling sleepy. Their eyes start feeling like they're burning, like they're tired. And eventually, they'll close their eyes. That's all well and good if you're doing a formal induction, say in front of a group or what it might be. But you can't do this conversationally, right? You can't just say to someone, sign the contract, 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 sign the contract. It doesn't work. If anything, it has the opposite effect. Persuasion reaction kicks in, they're fed up with you, and they'll just storm out the building, quite rightly so, because you have miscommunicated. What the conjunction allows you to do is to repeat and paraphrase the same concepts over and over again. So whilst the mind is still on the same concepts, constantly being reinforced, it still sounds fresh and new. And so you don't get the same kind of fatigue that you might do with just a random monotonous repetition. Okay, so that's the first concept. Our hypnotic language needs conjunctions to maintain that flow. The second portion is, well, what are we flowing through? What are we trying to achieve with our hypnotic language? We need to alter something in the mind. What is that something? Now, when we teach our conversational hypnotherapy diploma school, I go into this into much, much more detail into the 4 keys, which are feeling, doing, having, and being, right? And there's some more beyond that as well. We're going to focus on just one of those keys, the feeling key here today, just so we can get a nice, solid, practical skill set by the end of this masterclass. Thank you for watching. If you like this topic, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. See you in the next part.